What if the wildest idea to come out of the 90-day universe was not another breakup, not another screaming match at dinner, and not another visa meltdown, but an entirely new chaos-filled adventure starring two of the franchise's most unforgettable women? Imagine this. The cameras open on a dark jungle at sunrise. Mist hangs low over the trees. Birds scream in the distance. The music builds slowly, then suddenly cuts to a sharp dramatic beat. A voice says, "In a world where love is war, trust is fragile, and drama survives in every climate, two women are about to leave the comfort of relationship chaos and step into the untamed unknown." Then we see them. Natalie, staring intensely into the distance like she is about to either discover inner peace or start an argument with a cloud. Jasmine, walking forward with total confidence, dressed like she did not come to survive the wilderness but to dominate it. And just like that, the title slams onto the screen. 90-Day Cougars. This is not just a trip. This is not just another spin-off. This is emotion, ego, survival, mystery, strategy, tears, accusations, beauty, danger, and pure reality television madness all rolled into one unforgettable ride. Welcome to the show nobody knew they needed until now. Because if there are two women capable of turning one simple hike into a whole franchise, it is these two. The first episode opens with both women arriving separately, of course, because putting them in the same car right away would be too much even for TLC. Natalie arrives first. She steps out, looks around the jungle retreat, takes one deep breath, and says, "I feel nature. Nature understands me. Nature never lies." The producer asks if she is excited to spend several days surviving outdoors with Jasmine. Natalie pauses, turns slowly, and replies, "Excited is not the word. Prepared is the word." I do not know if she is prepared, but I am prepared. Cut to Jasmine arriving 10 minutes later in oversized sunglasses, flawless makeup, and enough energy to power a city block. She steps out of the car, looks at the camp, then laughs. "What is this? This is camping? Baby, no. If I am going to survive in the jungle, I will survive beautifully." The producer asks how she feels about teaming up with Natalie. Jasmine instantly says, "I love Natalie, but let me tell you something. If she starts acting weird in the woods, I am leaving her with the mosquitoes." That is the energy. That is the tone. And before they even meet face to face, the audience already knows this is going to be a masterpiece of chaos. Their official introduction at camp is somehow both polite and loaded. Natalie smiles too long. Jasmine hugs too hard. Both say they are happy to be there. Neither one means calm. They sit down with the host, who explains the rules. They will spend 3 days deep in the wilderness completing physical and emotional challenges. They must earn supplies, cook their own meals, build their own shelter, follow clues through the forest, and, most importantly, work together. At the words "work together," both women give tiny smiles that say the same thing. That will be the hardest challenge of all. The host continues. This is not about romance. This is not about men. This is about instinct, survival, and power. Jasmine leans in and says, "Perfect. Because I already know I am powerful." Natalie looks at her and softly adds, "Power without calm is dangerous." Jasmine immediately turns. "Are you talking about me?" Natalie blinks innocently. "If you feel it is about you, maybe it is." And there it is. Less than 8 minutes into the show, the temperature has already risen by 10 degrees. The first challenge is simple. Or at least it sounds simple. The women have 1 hour to gather materials and build a safe sleeping shelter before sundown. The winner gets a luxury item from civilization. Jasmine hears the words luxury item and suddenly becomes the most motivated person in the forest. Natalie hears the word safe and becomes spiritually invested in building the shelter as if their entire destiny depends on correct branch placement. Jasmine wants speed. Natalie wants precision. Jasmine says, "We need a roof now." Natalie says, "We need structure first." Jasmine says, "Rain is coming." Natalie says, "Bad structure is worse than rain." Within minutes, The two are standing on opposite sides of a pile of sticks arguing like they are dividing real estate in Beverly Hills. Jasmine grabs palm leaves and starts layering them dramatically. Natalie reorganizes the branches 3 times and starts talking about balance, harmony, and shelter energy. Jasmine says, "This is not yoga. This is survival." Natalie fires back, "Survival requires mind, not just screaming." Jasmine drops the leaves, throws her hands up, and says, "Who is screaming? I am talking passionately because I care." The producers probably had to mute 3 microphones just to keep the audio from peaking. But then something amazing happens. They accidentally begin to complement each other. Jasmine moves fast. Natalie notices weaknesses. Jasmine brings boldness. Natalie brings caution. Together they create a shelter that is weirdly elegant, suspiciously sturdy, and somehow has a dramatic entrance that looks like it belongs in a fashion campaign for people who only vacation in eco-luxury resorts. The host inspects it and nods. Strong build. Good overhead cover. Impressive teamwork. Both women immediately claim credit. Jasmine says, "I made it happen." Natalie says, "I made it smart." The host announces they have won the luxury item. The item is a mirror. Jasmine screams with joy. Natalie looks at it thoughtfully and says, "A mirror reveals truth." Jasmine stares into it and says, "A mirror reveals excellent skin." These two are not just surviving. They are creating moments. Night falls, and with night comes the campfire confession segment. This is where the show becomes dangerous, because giving these women a fire, darkness, and direct questions is like pouring gasoline onto a spark. The host asks the first question. "What is the biggest weakness you see in your partner?" Natalie answers first. She feels everything very quickly. Sometimes that gives power. Sometimes that gives explosion. Jasmine nods slowly, then says, "That is fair. My weakness is that I care too much." But Natalie's weakness? She lives in fantasy. She wants people to read her soul every second. We are in the jungle, not in a poetry class. Natalie looks wounded, but only for 1 second. Then she says, "Fantasy is better than emptiness." Jasmine leans back and says, "Baby, I am never empty. I am full of energy, truth, and excellent instincts." The host nearly laughs. The audience at home is already rewinding the scene. Then the host asks the question everyone has been waiting for. Who would last longer out here alone? Natalie says, "Me." Jasmine says, "Me." They say it at the same time. They look at each other. Silence. Then Natalie says, "I can live with very little." Jasmine smiles and says, "I can turn very little into everything." That line lands hard. It is trailer material. It is thumbnail material. It is exactly why this show works. The next morning starts with a scream. Not an emergency scream. A regular Jasmine scream. She opens a supply crate and finds a live crab inside. Why is it moving? Why is it looking at me like that? Remove it. Natalie walks over calmly, crouches down, and says, "He is scared too." Jasmine recoils and says, "Then he should leave." The challenge of the day is food gathering. They must collect ingredients from different jungle stations and cook a meal over open fire. Sounds easy until they realize one of the ingredients includes fish they must clean themselves. Natalie says she is ready. Jasmine says she can do hard things, but she will also complain beautifully while doing them. The journey to the food stations becomes its own episode within the episode. On the trail, Natalie keeps stopping to admire the beauty of nature and talk about intuition. Jasmine keeps checking the map and telling Natalie to focus. At one point Natalie says, "I think we should go left. I feel energy there." Jasmine snaps, "Energy does not win challenges. Directions win challenges." They go right. It is the wrong path. Natalie says nothing at first. Then she gives the camera one look that says more than 1,000 words. Jasmine notices and says, "Do not look at me like that." The map was confusing. Natalie softly responds, "The jungle knew." Jasmine turns to the producer and says, "Please do not let her start talking to trees." Somewhere in the editing room, an Emmy begins to glow. When they finally reach the cooking station, exhaustion has set in, but so has competitive fire. Jasmine takes over the flame. Natalie handles preparation. They argue over seasoning. Jasmine wants bold flavor. Natalie wants balance. Jasmine says, "More spice means more life." Natalie says, "Too much spice kills the real taste." Jasmine shakes her head. "That sentence explains so much about your dating history." Natalie freezes. Even the birds go quiet. The camera cuts close. This is the moment. The line between playful and personal just got very thin. Natalie looks at Jasmine and says, "You think being loud means being strong." Jasmine instantly fires back, "And you think being mysterious means being deep." There it is. The first real clash. Raw, sharp, personal. The host steps in before the argument turns into a full emotional landslide, but the tension stays in the air like smoke. And yet, even after all that, they still finish the meal. The judges taste it. One says it is surprisingly good. Another says the flavor profile feels like two opposing personalities somehow finding harmony. That is exactly the story of the show. Conflict and chemistry. Friction and weird respect. They do not always like each other, but they understand something about each other that nobody else fully does. They are both survivors in their own way. They have both lived publicly, loved loudly, and fallen apart on camera. They have both been judged, misunderstood, laughed at, and underestimated. And now they are in the jungle, with no glam squad, no romantic backup, and no way out except through the next challenge. Later that afternoon comes the emotional obstacle course. This is the part where the producers show they are not just making a survival show. They are making psychological television. At each station, the women must answer a personal question before moving forward. The first question for Jasmine is, "What do you fear people misunderstand about you?" She pauses longer than expected. "People think I am only angry." But anger is sometimes pain with nowhere to go. Suddenly, the tone changes. Even Natalie looks at her differently. The second question for Natalie is, "What do you hide behind when you feel rejected?" Natalie stares ahead and says, "Hope. Too much hope." Again, the energy shifts. For one brief moment, the audience sees beyond the drama. These are not cartoon characters. These are wounded, proud, intense people trying to survive both the world and themselves. That is why viewers cannot look away. At the next station, they must guide each other blindfolded through a maze of hanging vines and muddy ground. Jasmine is blindfolded first. Natalie gives instructions too softly. Jasmine gets frustrated. "I cannot hear spiritual whispering over jungle birds. Talk louder." Natalie takes a breath and starts again. "Step left." "No, your other left." Jasmine groans. "Do not do that." Everybody knows that is the worst instruction. Somehow they make it through. Then it is Natalie's turn. Jasmine becomes the loudest guide in TV history. "Walk forward." "No, not like that." "Lift your foot." "Lift it higher." "No, not that high. You are acting like a baby deer." Natalie trips into the mud and gasps. Jasmine covers her mouth, half horrified, half amused. Natalie stands up slowly, covered in dirt, and says with icy calm, "I will remember this." The audience at home screams. The producers know they have gold. By sunset, the women are exhausted, filthy, and still somehow camera-ready in the most reality TV way possible. They return to camp for the final segment of the episode, where each must privately decide whether they trust the other enough to continue as partners tomorrow or trade her in for a mystery replacement. This twist changes everything. Because up until now, all the conflict had a purpose. They had to stay together to win. But now the question is not whether they can survive together. The question is whether they even want to. Jasmine goes first into the confessional tent. She sits down, wipes sweat from her forehead, and says, "Natalie drives me crazy. She overthinks, she judges, and she acts like every moment is part of some dramatic movie. But I will say this. She is tougher than people think. She has control when things get messy. And even when I want to scream, I know she does not quit. So do I trust her? Maybe not fully. But enough to keep going? Yes." Then Natalie enters her confessional. She sits with that faraway look and speaks slowly. Jasmine is storm. She is fire. She is chaos. Sometimes she is exhausting. Sometimes she is too much. But a storm can also clear the air. And fire can keep you alive. I do not always feel safe with her emotionally. But I do feel stronger near her. So yes, I stay. The host gathers them at the fire pit and reveals the result. Both chose to remain partners. Jasmine claps once and says, "Of course you kept me." Natalie smiles and says, "Do not get too confident." The camera pulls back. The fire crackles. The jungle hums. The music rises. Then the host drops one final bombshell. "Tomorrow, your partnership will be tested by someone from your past." Both women freeze. Jasmine says, "What do you mean past?" Natalie's eyes narrow. The host only smiles. "You will find out in the morning." Smash cut to black. End of episode 1. And just like that, the internet loses its mind. Social media explodes. Some people say this is the funniest 90-day concept in years. Others say it is unhinged television in the best possible way. Fans begin choosing sides even though the smartest viewers know the real answer. The magic is not Jasmine or Natalie alone. The magic is the collision. It is watching two people who are both too strong to be background characters forced into the same unpredictable story. It is glamour meeting wilderness. Emotion meeting ego. Instinct meeting impulse. Every conversation becomes a battle. Every challenge becomes therapy with mosquitoes. Every silence feels like it could either become respect or another argument. And that is what makes 90-Day Cougars such an irresistible idea. It takes the chaos fans already love and throws it into a setting where nobody can hide behind comfort. No fancy dinner tables. No carefully staged entrances. No safe escape route. Just pressure, pride, personality, and the raw mess of survival. If episode 1 is any sign, this show is not just about the jungle. It is about what happens when people who are used to controlling the room have to face something bigger than themselves. The wild does not care about your image. The wild does not care who won the last fight. The wild only asks one question. What are you really made of when everything familiar is stripped away? And for Jasmine and Natalie, that answer is only beginning to unfold. Because tomorrow brings new challenges, surprise visitors, buried insecurities, rising tension, and a test so personal it could either break their fragile alliance or make them more dangerous than ever. So get ready, because this was only the beginning. The fire has been lit. The claws are out. And the cougars are officially in the wild. Morning in the jungle arrives quietly, but the tension inside the camp does not. The sun rises slowly through the tall trees, beams of light cutting through the mist like spotlights on a stage that nature itself has prepared. Birds scream overhead, insects buzz in every direction, and somewhere in the distance a monkey lets out a loud call that sounds suspiciously like laughter. Inside the shelter, Jasmine is already awake. She sits up, stretches, and looks around as if she owns the jungle. "I slept like a queen," she says confidently to the camera, even though her hair is a little messy and a leaf is stuck to her shoulder. "But I also know something. Today will be war." A few feet away, Natalie slowly opens her eyes. She sits quietly for a moment, taking a deep breath. "Nature wakes you gently," she says calmly. "But sometimes life wakes you with challenge." She glances toward Jasmine, who is already standing and checking the map of the next challenge. Natalie smiles slightly, as if she already knows what kind of chaos the day will bring. The host arrives at camp just as the morning sun begins to warm the air. "Good morning, Cougars," he says with a grin that makes it clear he already knows the day is about to get intense. Jasmine claps her hands once and says, "Let's go. I am ready to dominate this jungle." Natalie stands quietly beside her and adds, "Domination without strategy is just noise." The host raises an eyebrow. "Well, you'll both need strategy today, because today's challenge is called The Past Returns." Both women instantly look confused. The host explains the rules slowly, letting every word build suspense. "Today you will not be alone. Someone from your past has arrived to test your trust, your patience, and your emotional control. These surprise guests will work with you in the next challenge. But remember, they also know your weaknesses." Jasmine's eyes widen. "Wait. Someone from my past. Who approved this?" Natalie's expression grows serious. "This is a dangerous idea," she says softly. The host smiles. "Let's bring them out." From the path behind the trees, two silhouettes begin to approach. The cameras zoom in slowly, the music builds, and the moment stretches like a rubber band ready to snap. The first figure steps forward. It is Gino. Jasmine's jaw drops. She throws her hands into the air. "Oh my God! Why is he here?" Gino waves awkwardly. "Hey, Jasmine." The second figure steps forward. It is Mike. Natalie freezes for a second. Her eyes widen just slightly before she quickly regains her calm expression. "Hello, Michael," she says in a controlled voice. The producers clearly could not have planned a better emotional explosion. Jasmine immediately starts pacing. "No, no, no. This is sabotage. I came here to survive the jungle, not my relationship history." Gino shrugs nervously. "They asked me to come help." Natalie crosses her arms and looks directly at Mike. "Interesting," she says slowly. "Very interesting." Mike scratches the back of his head. "Yeah. I wasn't expecting the jungle either." The host claps his hands once. "All right, everyone. Today's challenge requires teamwork. Each cougar must work with her guest to navigate through 3 jungle checkpoints. But here's the twist. Your original partner will also be watching and judging your performance.